alarm clock goes off. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I quickly scramble out of bed. Today's the day. I can feel it. The morning is pitch black and I can see my breath like a constant fog in front of me. I shiver, despite the layers of clothing I piled on before coming out. I have a good feeling about this day as I quickly set up my blind and settle in. I've been tracking this buck for months. He'll be here. I know he will. Of course, I wait for what seems like hours until finally I see a shadow over the hill, just as the sun is coming over the horizon. I wait until the shadow moves closer, and I now know for certain that this is what I've been waiting for. I wait a few more minutes until I'm sure the buck is within shooting range. Carefully, moving as quickly and as silently as possible, I put the buck into my sights, aim, and shoot. I got it! Finally, the trophy buck I had always dreamed of. So I was walking from the woods, I smiled at my trusty digital camera. That will make a great scrapbook photo. You see, without wildlife conservation, that moment and many other wonderful benefits of wildlife would never have been possible. Wildlife conservation is the conservation of not only wildlife, but also of life itself. Without wildlife conservation, mankind would also lose. Being accustomed to diversity in its nature, the quality of human life would be diminished. Wildlife conservation is important in many aspects of our life. Without it, we cannot enjoy the many benefits of natural diversity, the many contributions to medicine and agriculture, and just the simple pleasures we get from nature. There are many things we, as a society, can do to help protect our wildlife, from the simple traditions of hunting to actually getting out there and taking part in the many wildlife conservation projects. Of course, first and foremost, wildlife conservation is desperately important to our wildlife. As habitat protections go, so go endangered species forever. Habitat loss and habitat fragmentation are two of the most significant causes of species extinctions throughout the world today. An animal's habitat is a combination of environmental factors that provide food, water, and cover that the animal needs to survive and reproduce. You can think of an animal's habitat as its life support system. Without this system, the animal cannot support itself enough to survive. Impacts to habitats can be caused directly or indirectly by such activities as the clearing of forests or by the introduction of invasive species. Habitats can also be destroyed by natural disasters, such as tornadoes, hurricanes, and earthquakes. In a nutshell, habitats can be destroyed or degraded in two basic ways: quantitative and qualitative losses. A quantitative loss involves a reduction in the amount of habitat area. For example, if a wetland is paved over, there has been a quantity of the wetland lost. Qualitative changes involve a change or degradation in the structure, function, and/or composition of the habitat. For example, if a paper company is discharging chemicals into the waterway and poisoning the water, there's been a qualitative loss. When an animal's habitat has been extensively modified, this animal can become threatened, endangered, or even extinct. This change impacts humans as well. The loss of species reduces biological diversity, which we, as humans, derive many benefits from, ranging from food to many medicine and industrial products. Whatever the case, if we don't take the time to conserve these natural habitats, the result will be disastrous to our way of life. Wildlife needs conservation, and yet many people will question this need, asking, if extinction is part of the natural order and other species still remain, why save endangered species? What makes these animals and plants so special that money and effort should be spent to conserve them? Well, Congress answered these very questions in the Endangered Species Act of 1973, stating that endangered species of fish, wildlife, and plants are of aesthetic, ecological, educational, recreational, and historical value to the nation and this people. In this one statement, Congress was summarizing a number of convincing arguments made by scientists, conservationists, and many other citizens who are desperately concerned about the conservation of our unique creatures. The U.S. Endangered Species Act of 1973 stands as one of the world's landmark conservation laws. Examples of its success include the recovery of the bald eagle, peregrine falcon, and the well-known California condor. Of course, in all reality, endangered species management has become a high-cost, last-minute, last-resort approach to conservation. Very few of the animals put on the endangered species list have ever recovered to a point that they can be removed from the list. Clearly, we need to realize that the time for cost-effective conservation measures is when wildlife and their habitats are still common, and before, not after, they have become significantly reduced or isolated. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife magazine, since the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock in 1620, more than 500 species, subspecies, and a variety of our nation's plants and animals have become extinct. And unfortunately, we cannot blame the ever-increasing decline of our wild animals and plants to natural processes. No matter how small or obscure a species, it could one day be direct aid to all of us. So, before you start thinking we could do without some species, remember this. It was only a fungus that gave us penicillin. And certain plants have yielded substances and drugs used to treat heart disease, cancer, and a variety of other illnesses. According to Mary Cantrell in her book, Wings for My Flight, 1/4 of all prescriptions written annually in the United States contain chemicals discovered in plants and animals. If these organisms had been destroyed before their chemistries were known, their secrets would have died with them. Biologists know that today's danger to wildlife almost always results from habitat degradation, environmental pollution, the introduction of invasive species, and exploitation. These are almost all directly related to human activities. We, as a society, need to educate ourselves to the ever-increasing pressure put on our ecosystem. We can act locally, and if enough people get involved, our acts will have a global impact. We need to remember that each living thing contains a unique reservoir of genetic material that has evolved over eons of time. This material can never be retrieved or duplicated if lost. Most people are uneducated, but they have a desire to do something to help. We need to give these people ideas and activities to make them proactive in the effort to conserve our habitats and wildlife. It's our responsibility, and we need to take action. So the question should no longer be, why do we need wildlife conservation?